Before I get into the topic of today's video, it's very important to me that you all know that one time while I was recording some gameplay with a friend for my soon-to-be gaming channel, I was also eating french fries at the time, and I dropped my microphone in ketchup. So, I couldn't get all of it out, so there's just ketchup in my microphone now. It's fine. We'll just get on with the video. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. First of all, I just want to say, yes, this video's late. It just be like that sometimes. Next up in the series of my life is just a disaster and my house is leaking nonstop. Luckily, that's taken care of now, finally. Last week was supposed to be the last time that people were coming in to fix the house. And so I was like, this video is gonna be late. I'll just wait until next week so then that way we could get on a regular schedule. But then plot twist, it wasn't actually the last time. So now this ended up being late anyway for the second week in a row. But it's fine because that was actually for real the last time somebody's coming to the house to fix the leak. Hopefully, knock on wood, I didn't just jinx it, but my room is together, I have things on my wall, it's not echoey, I can finally move on with my life, dear God. But anyways, the topic for today. A little while ago, I asked you guys what sort of things you wanted me to talk about in this video, and I decided to ignore all of your suggestions and start talking about an artist's comfort zones. I mean, I love you guys, but sometimes when I ask for video topic suggestions, you either give me things that isn't long enough of a discussion, in my opinion, for a full-length video, or is just unusable. So, thanks for that. It's not like I'm trying to make a video or anything. I'm kidding, your responses make me laugh. But I decided to talk about comfort zones for an artist, what exactly that means, and then are they good, are they bad? Who knows? I know. We will talk about it. Because I think that the topic of comfort zones is a little bit more complex than people tend to think about, and there's a little bit more to an artist's comfort zone than a lot of people typically think of. And I thought that drawing the drawings I am making in this video would be a good thing to showcase when talking about comfort zones, because these different drawings are on different levels of my comfort zones. I mean, that's a lie. I just lied to all of you guys. That it's true that they're on different levels of my comfort zones, but really I started recording this before I had a video topic. This is just my current hyperfixation and it has a death grip on my entire life, so I just wanted to draw some Deltarune on my channel. But luckily it fits the topic at hand, so yeah. Also, if you don't know Deltarune, don't worry, it's not going to be super relevant to this video at all. The only thing you need to know, blue person is Chris, purple girl is Susie, fluffy boy is Ralse. I'm gonna be mentioning their names, so that's all. If you don't know Deltarune, that's all you need to know. So, what is an artist's comfort zone? I assume you guys know the definition of comfort zone. I don't think we're that stupid over here. But there's a bunch of different aspects to an artist's comfort zone that some people might not entirely think of. When you say comfort zone, I think one of the first things, if not the first thing, that people tend to think of is a subject matter. So what is it that you draw? Do you draw your own original characters? Do you draw fan art? Do you draw human characters at all? Do you draw animals specifically? Do you draw super stylized cartoony stuff? Do you draw realistic things? Do you draw buildings? Things like that. And also angles. I decided to just shove angles in here with the little subject matter discussion because I figured it's a part of subject matter. I mean, we tend to gravitate toward that sweet 3/4 view. I'm guilty of that too, as evident by this drawing. 2 out of 3 of them are a 3/4 view. We don't gotta talk about that. But this is typically the first thing people think of when you think of an artist's comfort zone, and honestly, for good reason. When you look at a drawing, the first thing your brain really processes is the subject matter of it. And when you look at the 3 drawings that I'm making in this video, there's a person, a non-specific lizard girl, and a little goat boy. When you look at these drawings, those are the things that you think of. Human, lizard, goat. And in terms of my specific comfort zone, these subject matters, again, range from very comfortable to I don't draw this ever. Think about Chris. Chris is very, very much in my comfort zone. I draw so many humans. That's what I draw. That's just my thing. I draw people. And even armor included, Chris is very, very much in my comfort zone. I draw a lot of androgynous people. I've even drawn my fair share of armor in the past because I've been in love with Urza Scarlet for almost a decade now. So Chris I'm pretty much very much used to. Susie is somewhat in my comfort zone. For the most part, I just draw her how I draw a person, and then her that head. Her little snoot and stuff. But the reason she's somewhat in my comfort zone is because I can draw her body nice. Like, I think her body is fine. It's nothing I haven't done before. But then her face I can only draw from this specific angle. And so when I was drawing her and making thumbnails for how I wanted to pose her, I literally forced her head to face the side because I can't draw her any other way. And then Ralsei, holy fuck, how do I draw him? I posted these drawings to social media before this video was coming out, and a lot of people said that they really liked the way that I drew Ralsei, which good, because oh my god, drawing him, I wanted to rip my hair out. He's probably my favorite character, but he is so far from things that I typically draw. The way that I draw people, they're not the most proportionally accurate. I do stylize and push my proportions, but I would say compared to some other art styles, my proportions are on the more realistic side, especially when you compare them to Deltarune characters. If you've never seen them before, here's a picture of what Ralsei looks like in-game. Super cartoony, proportions are super exaggerated, and that's not something that I draw ever. And also, that said, I draw people. I don't really draw anthropomorphic characters at all. The closest I'll get is I'll have a character who's like mostly human, and then they'll have like fucking cat ears or something. My quote-unquote anthropomorphic characters are basically just people with like ears and a tail. I don't draw characters like this at all. So, you know, furry artists 1, Oliver 0. But it was a really big struggle trying to draw him in my art style because of how far out of my comfort zone he is. I would say that he has a lot more animalistic features than like Susie, for instance, and so trying to figure out a way how to, trying to figure out how to draw him in my art style. Honestly, I wouldn't even say that I figured it out in this video. But I guess another thing that people tend to view as a comfort zone is gender. I notice it's very common for artists to gravitate drawing one gender over another, or at the very least, femininity, masculinity, androgyny, and I am no exception to that. My comfort zone is very much androgyny and femininity. I can draw masculinity, but it's a lot harder for me. But moving on from subject matter, another big part of an artist's comfort zone is color palette, which is something that I don't think people think of as often. But if you look at a bunch of artists that you like, you will probably notice that they tend to gravitate towards specific color schemes. Or not even just color schemes, just certain color types in general. Like, I guess that was a burp. That was disgusting. I'm sorry. Do they tend to use more warm colors or more cool colors? Do they use bright and saturated, or do they use a lot more dull and desaturated colors? Do they use a variety of colors in one piece, or do they try and keep things very monochromatic? And even in the way that an artist might shade, do they have a very simple shading style? Do they have a more complex shading style? And anything along those lines. I didn't realize how much I personally gravitated towards blue. And so, but I don't even know, it's not even my favorite color, but I use a lot of blue, and I don't know why, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I guess I tend to gravitate towards, warm colors in general, a specific color blue. I don't know why. That's just how it is. But yeah, it's not something that people think as much when it comes to an artist's comfort zone, but it is very, very important. Because of the colors that I tend to use, whenever you look at a lot of my art, you tend to get a very bright, happy, fun sort of vibe. But an artist who uses more desaturated or dull colors, or darker colors, you might get a more gloomy vibe from it, or a more sad or bittersweet vibe. But one isn't better than the other, it's really just a matter of personal preference and comfort zones. And for me, my comfort zones, and the drawing that I am making in this video, Chris and Susie, very much in my comfort zones. Ralsei is not. I don't use green ever, really, but I use blue and purple fairly often. And then also the colors I shade with, that's another example of how Ralsei is very much not my comfort zone. I shade with a lot of purple. That's like my go-to colors for shading. And then I use a lot of blue. That's like, why did I just zone out for a second? It's really been a while since I've done this. And then blue is probably my second most used color for shading. The way that I shade, the technique that I use when it comes to digital art, I use multiply layers. So I'll just make a layer above my flat colors layer. I'll clip that, and then I will set it to multiply. And then I use various tones of a single shade of color to shade with. And for these characters, I use their main color for their shading colors. And I never, ever, ever shade with green. In my defense, it's a very tricky color to shade with, especially since I do draw a lot of people. Whenever I do shade with green, it can make them seem very sickly, and especially shading this green on top of the green. I don't know what it is about it that makes it a lot less visually pleasing to my eye. Like, I have blue shaded with blue in Chris's drawing, and then I have Susie where she's shaded with purple on top of purple, but then for some reason the green on top of the green isn't good. It was very, maybe it was just my lack of confidence because it was so out of my comfort zone, but it just looked very strange. I ended up warming it up just a little bit to make it a little bit more of a yellowish green because my god, I hated it. I would also say that Ralse is very much out of my comfort zone because of how limited his color palette is. I mean, to be fair, there's about 3 different colors. There's the green, there's the black, and there's the red. And I would recommend having about 3 per character. Whenever I do try to design a character, I try to limit it to about 3. But I guess just the color placement in Ralse's design makes it feel a lot more limited compared to Susie or Chris, because Chris, they have their blue skin, and then they have their, I think it's technically black, but I used a very, very dark blue for their hair, and then the gray for the armor, the black for the clothes underneath, and then the red for the scarf. A lot of the colors are scattered throughout the drawing, and they do get brought out a little bit more. And with the armor, I used like different tones of gray. And then for Susie, she has various tones of her specific colors. She has a few different tones of purple, and she has yellow touches scattered throughout her drawing. Why did I forget the word drawing? That's not a good sign for an art channel. And then even with her skin, she does have like a solid color, but she has those darker freckles throughout. But with Ralse, it's a lot more limited. He has, the fur was solid black, and then his robe and hat were just solid green, and then his scarf was a solid reddish pink color. I ended up just making some minor changes to the design, which I mean, that's what I did for all of them. Since they're all pixelated in sprites, a lot of people, including myself, when drawing characters from games like Deltarune, tend to just add their own touches in the character designs. And so with Ralse, I did that too, but I had a really hard time with him because I wanted it to look like him, but also I'm not one to design a character like that. I usually try to break up those solid blocks of characters. I try to break up. I need help. I usually try to break up those solid blocks of colors as much as I possibly can, but for him it was really hard for me to do that because I needed to find that balance of being able to break up those giant blocks of colors and also have it look like him. This video is just me ranting about how I can't draw my favorite character from Deltarune. But as much as the Ralse drawing was very much out of my comfort zone, I would say the part of it that was most inside my comfort zone was color, just because I do enjoy using a variety of color. Still wasn't super in my comfort zone, but just a little bit. Compared to everything else, it was in my comfort zone, I guess. But something that I don't think people really consider at all when it comes to comfort zones is, does an artist make a lot of finished illustrations or do they make a lot of sketches? And then by extension, what medium do they tend to most use? What are they most comfortable using? Since I do have a YouTube channel, I do tend to make a lot of finished illustrations compared to sketches. I don't sketch as often as I used to because most of the time I was just in school sketching, but now that I have YouTube as my full-time job, I make a lot more finished illustrations now. I still do sketch, but I would say most people associate my art with finished illustrations, and then either the digital art that you see in this video or marker illustrations. And I am guilty of gravitating towards the same mediums despite owning many. And I'm not an expert in all mediums, but I think I can say with some confidence at least that I'm pretty good at using a variety of mediums, but I go to the same ones. I try to experiment more, but you know, it'd be like that sometimes, I guess. But there are some artists that I associate their sketches with their art more often than their finished illustrations, and a big part of that is just what they draw more, or at least what they share most of. And I guess something else worth mentioning is, does an artist make illustrations as a part of a set, or do they make more of just one-off illustrations? I didn't think I made as many sets, I guess I'll call them, like illustrations that go together, but the more I thought about it, I literally try and make every OC video of the month match with each other when they're characters from the same universe. So I try and make those drawings look cohesive with one another. So I try and make those pieces look cohesive with one another, so I guess I do make a lot of sets. But I always have a lot of ideas for illustrations as a complete set, but I never get around to making them because I don't have that time. And so whenever I see artists being able to do that, it's crazy. How do you do that? But yeah, I don't think finished illustrations versus sketches is something people consider a whole lot when it comes to an artist's comfort zone, but really, it is probably the biggest part of a comfort zone, because if you're sitting there thinking that, like, I want to make a drawing just for me that I like, then what's it gonna be? Is it gonna be a sketch or a finished illustration? It shapes how you will make that thing, how long you will spend on that thing, what you will use to make that thing, etc. So within the topic of an artist's comfort zone, if I were to say, are backgrounds in your comfort zone? Most of you are probably gonna be like, fuck no. And I guess this kind of ties back to the first point of a subject matter, because backgrounds are something that a lot of people are intimidated by, me included. Hi. But for a lot of artists, their comfort zones is avoiding backgrounds like they're the plague. And if you don't draw a scenery type background, do you add anything in the background, or is your character just floating in the ever so famous white void of art drawings? That was redundant. For me personally, I don't do a lot of quote unquote proper backgrounds, I guess. I don't really know what else to call it, but I do a lot of these background elements, and one of what you are seeing in this video. I don't draw like a scenery in the background, but I do add stuff in the background. I call them background elements. I don't know if there's a proper official quote-unquote word for it, but just something to add some sort of visual interest in the background so that the character isn't floating in space. A lot of the times I will add some sort of like color block in the background, or some sort of shape or design or pattern or something, just to make it a little bit more visually interesting. I really try to avoid the whole white void thing. But then even within backgrounds, there's your comfort zone within backgrounds. Whenever I do make a scenery in a background, I tend to gravitate towards things like a bedroom or like a shop, usually like a cafe or something. And I very much avoid things like nature drawings. I don't draw people just out in nature because gross. I'm kidding, nature, I love you. And then with my background elements, I tend to gravitate towards a lot of squares and borders and stuff like that. And drop shadows. I am a slut for a good drop shadow. But a big part of an artist's comfort zone, which I saved for last kind of because it's a little bit of a complicated subject, is an art style. So obviously every artist has their own art style that they draw in, but the best way that I can think of to phrase what I have in my brain as a thought is, how much do you experiment with your art style? Do you play around with line thickness at all? Do you play around with having thicker lines or thinner lines? Or do you play around with maybe completely omitting line art from your art style? Do you play around with pushing proportions and exaggerating that? Do you play around with how you might stylize a face or the folds in clothing? I guess the best way I can explain how it's a bit more of a complicated thing is talking about my own art style. I think one of the biggest examples of a shift in my art style is my line art. It's just progressively gotten thinner and thinner and thinner, but I used to prefer rather thick lines, but now I prefer very thin lines. And now if I were to use thicker lines, that would very much be not in my comfort zone. And also proportions. I used to stylize eyes, so then that way the eyes were like half of the head, and I don't really do that anymore. I still like to draw fairly large anime eyes, because large anime eyes, am I right? But I don't draw them nearly as big as I used to. So if I were to draw that large of eyes and try to stylize a face in the way that I used to, now that would be out of my comfort zone. And I guess the way that art style is most complicated within comfort zones is because it's like you know, an artist's art style tends to be based a lot in their comfort zones. And I guess the more you experiment with your art style, the more your comfort zones are likely to shift. And an artist has their art style for a reason. It's probably because a lot of the stuff that they use in their art style is in their comfort zone. So comfort zone. Comfort zone is losing all meaning. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like a lot of people view comfort zones, especially in art, as a very bad thing, and they definitely can be. It's very, very important for a lot of artists to experiment and try and get out of that comfort zone. At least for me, growing up, a lot of people would point out that, like, I draw a lot of the same stuff and that I needed to experiment more, but they never really told me why. Well, there's probably a lot more that can be said about that, but here's some points that I've thought of. Depending on what type of field you want to get into with art, assuming you want to take art in a professional direction, you need to be able to do a variety of things. Like for me, I really like doing comic work. I have been working very, very hard on a webcomic behind the scenes, which unfortunately had to be postponed, but we won't get into that now. You guys already know. But to be able to make the world and the characters believable, and also to make the comic interesting to read, you have to be able to do a variety of things, which requires a lot of experimenting. I need to experiment with different character designs, different facial proportions, and things like that to make two characters feel separate from one another. I need to experiment with how I design worlds to make that universe seem very unique and exciting and something that the reader wants to be a part of, I guess. And I need to play around with a lot of compositions, like panel compositions and angles and how I frame things, because if I just do the same thing over and over and over again, the reader will get bored very quickly. If you are an artist who takes commissions, it might not be a bad idea to experiment once in a while if you do that, because, I mean, generally speaking, you never really know what it is you're going to be commissioned. Because on one hand, you wouldn't come to an artist like me for a realistic acrylic painting. But also on the other hand, I have gotten commissions of things that I wouldn't really draw myself. And so while you might commission an artist because you like a specific aspect of you might commission an artist because you like a specific aspect of their art. You also want to commission an artist what you want to commission them. And also, just the more things that you practice drawing, the more you draw, the better you'll get at drawing. Kind of. It's a little complicated, but let me explain. Art progress, as much as I wish it was, it's not as simple as just the amount of time that you spend drawing equals improvement. If you think of like a chart, right? Like you got the the y-axis and the x-axis. I haven't been in school in a while. But if you think of a chart, it's not as simple as like starting in the bottom left corner and then going in the bottom right corner. That's not what you want. Going to the top right corner, it's not as simple as that. There's a lot of ups and downs, but generally speaking, the longer that you draw, the better you will get at it. Obviously, that's an entirely different topic. It's a discussion that is pretty separate from this video, but one of the reasons that my skill level is the way that it is because I have been drawing for a long time, and I have, throughout my many of years of drawing, have experimented with a lot of different stuff. And even in this video, when I am drawing things that aren't in my comfort zone, experimenting with a bunch of different stuff in the past gave me an idea of how to tackle these things outside of my comfort zone. Like if we look at Ralsei, I don't draw anthropomorphic characters ever, but I draw people a lot, and I have practiced drawing animals quite a bit in the past. And so even though I had no idea how to draw Ralsei, and even though it's not something that I'm super 100% happy with and is something that I could definitely make changes to, but experimenting with all of those things in the past made it a little bit easier for me to tackle this thing outside of my comfort zone and made me a little bit less afraid, because drawing things like animals is something that was very much out of my comfort zone, but I tackled it before, so this drawing was a little less scary for me to make. Also, a quick little point, it could help you fill out sketchbook pages, nudge nudge, wink wink. I know everyone here on my channel loves sketchbooks. If you're looking to fill out your sketchbook pages, get out of that comfort zone, try some new things. It's something that I don't think people talk about nearly as much as they should, is that comfort zones can actually be a very good thing with your art. Yes, experimenting is all great and fine and dandy, but why do we have comfort zones, and what is the purpose of them? That's the same question twice. But how can they be a good thing? Well, for one, it is a very good way to unwind with your art. Now that I have art as my job and I just draw my comfort zones and get paid for it, not everyone is as lucky as that, and this hasn't always been the case for me. Like if we think back when I was in school, if I had a really bad day in school, or just a long day, or if I just had a day in school. Sometimes that anime girl from the 3/4 angle with her hand on your hip, probably winking. Sometimes that's all you need. What your comfort zone is as an artist can also give other people looking at your art a really good idea of what your art is about. If people were to scroll through my Instagram page, for example, they can see, oh, you use a lot of bright colors, you kind of are horny on main, maybe a little too much. I think an artist's comfort zone is a really good impression of what their art is like generally. And of course, this will attract people who also have those similar interests. Because when you draw something in your comfort zone and you share it, someone can look at that and be like, oh, I also like that thing. And then they might follow you, and then you might also be like, oh, we like things. And then a friendship is born. I thought it would be worth mentioning art block, but it's a little bit more of a complicated subject. Drawing repeatedly in your comfort zone can both be a cause and a solution to art block. It honestly really depends on the person, and there are people who... There's the whole debate about whether or not art block even really exists, but if we just put that whole argument aside, yeah, it can definitely be the cause of art block because you can very much feel like you are drawing the same thing over and over and over again. But then for some people, if they are in art block, their comfort zones, it's just like good old reliable to them. So it's just like when all else fails, I can go back to this. But the biggest reason that a comfort zone is very good and important to artists is because your comfort zone, you like it. It's your comfort zone for a reason. It's because you like it. At the end of the day, art should really just be what you like. If you aren't drawing things that you like, no, yes. You know what I mean. If you don't draw stuff that you like, then literally what's the point of drawing? And yeah, it's important to experiment. Like I said, I really like working on my webcomic, and for that I need to do a lot of experimenting stuff, but also, if I'm just drawing just for me, there's absolutely nothing wrong with drawing the same thing over and over again. If drawing the same thing over and over again gives me joy. I draw a lot of anime girls from the 3/4 angle because I like anime girls from the 3/4 angle. I use a lot of blue and character designs because I like blue and character designs. Drawing those things makes me very happy. It makes the serotonin in my brain go, ooh, yes, more of that, please. And really, whenever you draw, that's what your brain should be doing. So yeah, I think it's really great to encourage artists to get out of their comfort zones, but I don't particularly like how people view comfort zones as like a bad thing, I guess, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with having your nice little cozy comfort zone that you can always go back to when everything else fucking sucks. I don't know if this was an interesting topic for you guys to listen to. But I hope you liked it. Let me know if you liked it. There are definitely some things in this video that can be discussed further. Like, art style is a very big one. And I didn't really talk a whole lot about how you can break out of your comfort zone. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys can figure that out on your own, but it can seem like an intimidating thing to do, especially if you are very much stuck in your comfort zone. So let me know if there's anything in this video that you want me to talk about further, or maybe I'll make a video on it in the future. Who knows? But yeah, again, sorry that this video is late. I would say the next one won't be late, but honestly, I'm not gonna make any promises. But maybe the one after that won't be late. I mean, since this video is late, there's a good chance that my next video is gonna be at least a little bit late, but I'll try my best. But let me know your thoughts on comfort zones. Let me know if I said anything in this video interesting to you. Also, let me know if you disagree with anything in this video. Let's talk. Let's chat. What are your thoughts? What's on your mind? But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here, hello, my name is Oliver. I make a lot of art on this channel, as you can probably guess. I do a lot of speed paints. I'll do sketch vlogs. I'll do traditional art, digital art, whatever I want. It's my channel. I do what I want. But if you liked the art in this video, consider subscribing. I would love to have you over here. I love sharing my art with you guys. We're a cool place. We're a cool place here, and I know how to talk. Hello. But if you want to see more from me, you can follow me on social media. Those will be shown on screen now and linked in the iCard. No, I always do that. Linked in the description. In the iCard, there will be some videos for you to check out, and there will also be some on screen now. If you like this one, go check those out. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.